And now all of a sudden there's all this talk about the possibility of the Pelicans moving on from him and everything else. And just because, Jay, this is the only chance I'm going to get to talk to you, I really wanted to get your perspective on him. Obviously, you saw him at Duke as much as anyone could have. You studied and scouted and did all the stuff with the draft. And now you've seen what's happened. I'm just curious to get your perspective on Zion, his progress as a player right now, the questions about him, and where you think it goes from here.
Well, first of all, I don't recall anybody talking about Zion. There were glowing comments, and he was the clear #1 pick to me, but nobody was saying that he was on a direct line to being transformational in the NBA and the best player like we are with Wemby. This is a different conversation. But he's different than most any other player you'd ever seen. And when he's been healthy and on the floor, he's been great. I don't think there's any argument about that. The issue has been he's not been available. And what do guys say? Like, the best ability in the NBA is availability. But he hasn't played. When he's played, there's no argument that he's been great. He just needs to be on the floor.
And so, yeah, and that is the thing. I guess we have talked, Wendy, about him at his size being able to play center at whatever, however tall he actually is and everything else. So we've seen it. Once and for all, the night has finally come. Is there a real possibility that Zion gets traded before the draft?
I don't think so, because Mitch Kupchak, the general manager of the Charlotte Hornets, came out yesterday and said they're almost 100% going to use the pick at #2, and all signs point to the Blazers using the pick at #3. Those are the spots that the Pelicans were interested in moving up to because they had such an affinity for Scoot Henderson. Zion Williamson was never out there on the trade market. He was only a discussion about whether or not the Pelicans could somehow get picks 2 or 3 to get Scoot Henderson. That doesn't appear likely. I think this is a different issue. I think the Pelicans are going to move forward and try to get Zion healthy and try to get him going this fall. And I'm just going to say, when he was at Duke, he was a defensive playmaker. When Jay was calling his games, Zion made a bunch of plays defensively. He hasn't done that regularly in the NBA, and that's something that the Pelicans need very badly when Zion is back healthy.
Let me give Legs the final word here. How about it, Timmy? So much conversation here. You've heard it. What is your perspective?
Well, I just don't think there's a definitive right answer here. Here's the thing that's a dilemma with Zion Williamson. I mean, his ceiling is first team all league. His floor is out of the league in a couple of years. And I don't think that's crazy to say, because you look at his career to this point, he's been available for 36% of his team's games since he came into the league. I mean, you're talking about 1 out of 3 games he's available to play. And to Jay's point, there's no doubt he is so unique when he does play and the way that he impacts the game and his efficiency offensively. There's no matchup for him because of his weight, strength, and quickness, and his ability to finish with a soft touch in the paint. No one is denying that. It's, do the Pelicans have a window right here where potentially they could make a move, whether it's before Thursday or not? Can they make a move for Zion Williamson now? Because if he's got one more injury coming his way this coming season, then their trade window to get back max return could be gone. I think there are some people that would still want to bite on Zion Williamson right now. But if the Pelicans can't get into a situation where they feel like they can get Scoot Henderson, I'm not sure that they go in a different direction. It seems like that's the guy they're most enamored with. And if that trade can't be made, maybe they hold on to him. But I think it'd be foolish to say the Pelicans shouldn't be exploring opportunities to potentially move him because of how precarious his situation has been with his health.
All right. It's a fascinating situation they're in. Jay, we'll all be watching tonight. I always so appreciate it, my man. Thank you. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for jumping in. All right, Jay Bilas with us.
Could end up restarting also with Chris Paul. But one of the things I think is important to keep an eye on, both Paul George and Kawhi Leonard have contract extension situations this offseason. They're both going into the last year of their contract. And are the Clippers going to extend those guys? Because in today's day and age, if you have a star player going into the last year of his contract, you extend him. And if you don't extend him, typically if the player doesn't sign, it's an indication that long-term there's going to be an issue. And in the recent days, Paul George's name has popped up in some places that he might be available, specifically in regards to the #3 pick in the draft. Now, I don't think the Clippers are actively looking to do this, but I do think where the Clippers are right now needs to get more attention in the league. Whether or not they're obviously going to go out and try to trade for a player like Chris Paul, and whether or not they're going to, this offseason, reinvest in the future of Paul George and Kawhi Leonard together when that hasn't borne fruit and they continue to have injury problems. That is one of the big storylines that we're going to see once free agency period starts.
Well, look, teams having problems and potentially doubling down on them. Zach, did you want to get a quick thought in there?
I totally agree with Wendy. The Clippers are one of the biggest sneaky storylines in the league. I don't think Portland would even think about number 3 for Paul George. I think that's a non-starter for them. I think what's really happening with Paul George's name started to rumble out there is the Clippers, I think internally, have decided if these guys walk in the door and ask for 4-year, ironclad, fully guaranteed max extensions, we're not just going to roll over and give those deals to them. They do not play enough. We are prepared to actually negotiate with them on things like, hey, Paul, would you do a 2+1, a 2+ partial guarantee? And I think that noise getting around the league is why we're starting to see these questions rise, because you never know if a team takes that kind of position, if they